What I've done is I've gridded this off approximately. I've made it a center mark here, a center mark here, center mark here. This gives me basically the center of the page. I'm going to do something similar in positioning. It may not come out exactly the same, but it's going to be somewhat similar. So what we're going to start with is just a light ghosted drawing of pretty much what my final drawing will be like. I usually take my Canson, put it on a drawing board, and then I have 2 or 3 other sheets of Canson behind it so it has a soft quality. You're not drawing on that hard surface of a drawing board. The other thing you might notice is I'm working at relative arm's length. And so we'll start with kind of some of these shapes. We're still dealing with proportion and gesture. Not a lot of perspective. There's a little bit involved, but it's primarily proportion and gesture. So we'll come in with the head shape. We look for these angles. The angle, that wasn't severe enough. The angle's more this way. The hair comes in, comes out from the cheek, comes in, and then really hangs down beautifully. Really nice, long, flowing line there. Front of the body. We run like plumb lines. If you run a plumb line directly up from the tip of the hair to the front of her chest and run it straight up, it lines up almost right there. So that tells me that that is pretty much where I want this mark. And I really don't want her to extend much beyond this. And then we'll come back. We want to check these distances. It looks relatively correct. We'll come back at an angle. Now I want to look at where that arm is. Where does that arm line up? The arm lines up right about here. So that tells me something too. Make a very quick light mark in there. These are just indications of where the sleeve would be. There's a shoulder line. You get a seam. These are all great landmarks. And these landmarks allow you to measure more easily. The closer together the landmarks, the easier the measuring. Her back, we'll take it off her hair, so we want to make sure this is about right. Want to look at the angle of the back. Very often, if I have a model in front of me, I'll sit here and I'll take my pencil and I'll lay it right on her back. I'll close one eye, lay it right on her back to depict the angle, and then I'll move it over to my drawing board and make sure I have the angle that I want. And that's the angle I want. So we're going to do that. At some point, if this is her sleeve line, the arm is going to cut back in. It's locked. Her arm is locked very strong right in here. So at slightly above the break in her arm, which is right about here, the t-shirt starts to pull away from her body. Okay. So we know that at this point it basically is where her leg begins to come out, right about here. Comes almost horizontal. So we'll bring this out. This is a nice dark shape that I'm going to be able to utilize later. We want this space next. This space. It's about right. Where does the hand sit compared to that? The knuckles sit right about here. So we're going to bring that arm down. We're going to bring the hand down because this is where the knuckles are going to sit. The knuckles are going to sit right about there. Thumb is going to stick out. Hand's going to come down. We want to get the rhythm of the fingers as it sits back in there, the back of the palm of the hand. And that indicates about where we want the hand. So now we're going to sweep that leg back. About from there. And the intersection of her pants leg and the actual part of her thigh lines up about here. Sits a little lower. It's almost perpendicular. The gesture's working pretty well here. So we're going to sweep this down. We're going to try and find where the knee is. We're going to look for this length. The length between the back of the pants and where the stocking, the knee stocking, begins to intersect. It's about here. The angle is about like that. I'm not going to try for the exact curve. The the calf runs down, then the angle picks up. The foot is going to rake across the ground. Let me explain something as this is for sketching purposes, particularly the lay-in. A lot of people want to draw like this, and usually if you're drawing down, you can draw like this. If you're sketching, it's almost like painting. Hold your pencil looser put your thumb and your finger together and then brace the pencil with very delicately with the back of the rest of the fingers and use your arm more to draw as opposed to use your wrist. So what you'll find is you'll keep a more sensitive touch on it. Now let me find where this foot is really going to hit right about in there. That's where I want the toe. So I can tell you right now I've got that too long. Since that's the case, either that or I'm off on this angle. Let's double check the angle. Nope, that angle's right on the money. It's exactly right. Heel needs to be here. Ah, so I did mess up. Let's raise the heel. Raise the heel. Bring the foot down. Toes. That feels better right there, I can tell you. Now, the other thing that occurs here is at this point, it starts to bunch up the leg in, and it comes probably down more like this, and then her foot drifts off back there. So the next thing we want to do is lay some of the rest of the gesture and proportion in. The chair that she's sitting on, there we have a leg coming from here. The rest of it we'll put in, but I'm not going to worry about it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of paper, and I'm slowly going to just lose the face a little bit. I had some chalk on it, just because I felt like, as I mentioned, I had the face a little small. Not unusual, not unusual for me. So I'm going to reestablish the neck, and I'm staying with a 4B here. So all I'm doing now is readjusting the head. Cheek, cheekbone, eye socket, forehead, hairline, hairline, angle of that hair. All right, I'm too perpendicular. I need more of a sweep. So that will help. It comes back right about in here. That feels much better. The proportion, I'm happier with that proportion. It's really nice to not to begin drawing anything until you get most of your proportions down to where you're somewhat satisfied. And that isn't to say, as we progress into this, that I might not see things I want to make a change on. Okay. Let's worry about some features here. Let's get eyes in. And where that nose, the tone of the nose. So I'm not drawing firm lines. One of the reasons that you want to hold the pencil this way also is that you don't want these lines to be too crisp right now, too definitive. Be vague. Give yourself room to kind of adjust.